All right, so today we're diving into the Akkadian Empire.
Ooh, exciting.
Yeah, it should be fun. You've provided a ton of research on their culture,
Right.
religion, society, and we really want to go beyond, just the basic facts and figures
Yeah.
and almost like be transported back in time
Totally.
and on try to like live there for a bit,
Right,
to get a feel for what it was actually like. So to set the scene, I mean, we're talking about ancient Mesopotamia,
Yes,
a really powerful civilization known for its military achievements.
absolutely.
But today we're focusing on daily life.
Right. Yeah, like the nitty gritty.
Yeah, so let's dive into this stack of research and see what
awesome.
surprises we find.
That's good. Let's do it.
One thing that struck me right away was that the Akkadians weren't just conquerors. They seem to have been pretty good at absorbing elements of the cultures they came into contact with.
Yes, that's a great point. They weren't just about brute force.
Right.
They were very much about incorporating, especially from the Sumerians,
Right.
is this fascinating kind of blend.
Okay, so let's unpack that a little bit, this Akkadian-Sumerian mix.
Sure.
I'm curious about the language situation. Did everyone in the empire just switch over to speaking Akkadian?
Well, not exactly. It's a bit more complicated than that. Imagine a world
Okay.
where you speak one language in the marketplace, but then you step into a temple
Mm-hmm.
or a government office, and
Ah.
boom, it's a completely different language.
So Akkadian was for everyday life,
Yes.
but Sumerian stuck around for the more official stuff.
Yeah, you could say that. It's kind of like Latin in medieval Europe.
Oh, that's a good analogy.
It shows that they didn't just erase the existing culture.
Right.
They incorporated it, gave Sumerian this almost sacred status.
That's really interesting. And it
Right.
kind of makes me wonder about their approach to religion then.
Yeah.
Did they just like bring in their own gods or did they keep the Sumerian ones?
Well, they actually
Mhm.
adopted the Sumerian pantheon,
Wow.
which is
Yeah.
fascinating in itself, but
Yeah.
they definitely made some tweaks, shall we say.
Okay.
For instance, Ishtar, the goddess of love and war,
Mm-hmm.
she became a superstar in Akkadian culture.
Ishtar, huh? I mean, why her specifically? It's
Why-
not like love and war are unique concepts. I mean, every culture has those.
Right, that's the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
Some scholars think it might reflect a society where women, at least in certain roles,
Yeah.
had more clout than we usually think of for these ancient cultures.
Okay.
I mean, we have this image, right,
Yeah.
of these empires as being super patriarchal,
Mm-hmm.
but maybe Akkadian society was a bit more nuanced.
Now, that is a thought-provoking point, have to admit. I'm already rethinking some of my assumptions.
That's-
Speaking of assumptions, let's talk about Akkadian art. I know they're known for powerful imagery.
Yeah.
Did they just copy the Sumerian style?
They definitely took inspiration from Sumerian art with all the intricate details and symbolism,
Right.
but they injected this incredible sense of action,
Okay.
especially when depicting their kings.
Makes sense. I mean, every ruler wants to look powerful.
Yeah, of course. A prime example of this Akkadian style
Yeah.
is the victory stele of Naram Sin.
Okay.
Picture this. The king, larger than life, climbing a mountain,
Oh.
literally stepping on his enemies.
Well,
It's all about showcasing military triumphs and this idea of divine right to rule.
so basically those ancient propaganda posters,
Exactly.
but carved in stone.
Yeah.
It's amazing how art reflects power dynamics even thousands of years ago.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
It really is. But all this talk about kings and steles makes me wonder about everyday life in the Akkadian Empire.
Right.
I mean, did everyone just live in the shadow of these grand monuments?
Well, no, Akkadian society was much more complex than that. Think of it like a pyramid
Okay.
with the king at the very top,
Right at the top.
and then below him you have the nobles
Mm-hmm.
who helped run the empire.
Okay.
And then came a whole bunch of other people.
So who are these folks in the middle of the pyramid, so to speak? The ones
Right.
keeping the empire running?
You had priests, for example,
Okay.
but they weren't just praying all day.
Right.
They managed these massive temple complexes
Mm.
that were like economic and social hubs.
So kind of like a CEO of a big corporation?
In a way, yeah.
Okay.
And then you had the scribes,
Uh-huh.
the engine of the bureaucracy,
Okay.
like record-keeping taxes,
Right.
all the essential things that keep a civilization going.
The original desk jockeys.
Yeah, you could say that.
And I bet their ability to read and write was really key to their social standing.
Absolutely. Cuneiform wasn't just a writing system.
Right.
It was a tool of power and influence.
Okay, so we've got priests, we've got scribes. Who else was part of this Akkadian workforce?
Well, you can't forget about the farmers and the laborers,
Right, of course.
the backbone of the empire.
Yeah, keeping everyone fed.
Exactly. And then, given their military might,
Mm-hmm.
There were the soldiers,
Yeah.
a respected profession
Hmm.
tasked with expanding and defending the empire.
Right. The muscle that keeps the empire growing. But what about women? What were their roles in this society?
Well, their lives could vary greatly depending on their social standing. For instance, noble women could own property and even serve as priestesses.
Wow. That's interesting.
Imagine the influence a priestess might have wielded,
Yeah.
especially with the importance placed on a goddess like Ishtar.
That really does challenge the typical assumptions about women's roles in these ancient societies.
Right. It's not so black and white.
Things were probably a lot more complex.
Absolutely.
But let's bring this down to street level for a moment.
Okay.
Can you paint me a picture of what daily life might have been like for, say, a farmer
Sure.
or a craftsman?
Imagine yourself as a farmer, waking up before sunrise to tend to your fields.
Okay.
They had these sophisticated irrigation systems inherited and improved upon from the Sumerians,
Right.
making the most of the fertile land along the rivers.
It sounds like a tough life, but essential.
Oh, absolutely.
But what about someone living in a city?
Well, a craftsman might spend his day in a bustling marketplace.
Okay.
Picture the scent of spices, the clatter of tools, the shouts of bartering.
Yeah.
Trade was a huge part of the Akkadian economy.
It really does sound like there was a real vibrancy to Akkadian society. It wasn't just all conquests and power struggles.
Right.
But, with all this talk about gods and goddesses,
Yeah.
I'm really curious to explore their spiritual side.
Okay.
So let's
do it.
dive into the world of Akkadian religion next.
Sounds good.
We've been talking about, their language, their art, their social structures.
Right.
But something tells me we can't really get the Akkadians without understanding their religious beliefs.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, religion wasn't just something they did, on the weekends or whatever.
Right.
It was woven into every single aspect of their lives.
Okay.
I mean, just imagine a world where the gods controlled everything.
Yeah.
The weather, the harvests, even your luck in like business deals.
So it wasn't just about, praying for good fortune. It was about really understanding the will of the gods and making sure you didn't get on their bad side.
Exactly. You had to keep them happy.
So who are the big names in this Akkadian pantheon?
Well, we've already talked about Ishtar.
Right, the goddess of love and war.
Exactly. A major figure for sure. But alongside her, you had Enlil, the god of wind and storms.
Okay, so like a Mesopotamian Zeus?
Yes, something like that.
Yeah.
He was considered the king of the gods.
So the ultimate authority figure.
Right. If you were hoping for a good harvest, you better make sure you're on Enlil's good side.
Makes sense. Who else were they praying to?
Another big one was Shamash,
Okay.
god of justice and the sun,
Oh, interesting.
associated with truth and righteousness. Kind of like a cosmic judge figure.
Okay.
He's often depicted holding a saw.
A saw, really?
Yeah, symbolizing his ability to like cut through lies and expose the truth.
Wow, that's a powerful image. But how did they actually interact with these gods? I mean, what did religious practice look like?
Okay, so picture this. You're approaching this massive temple complex.
Okay.
The air is thick with incense. You hear the chanting of priests echoing from inside.
Okay.
You enter this dimly lit chamber, and you see offerings of food and wine laid out before this statue of a deity.
Okay.
Maybe Ishtar, adorned with jewels, precious metals.
Sounds like a sensory overload.
Oh, for sure.
Were these ceremonies like for everyone, or was it just the priests and like the elite?
No, these ceremonies were vital for everyone.
Okay.
They believed that keeping the gods happy was like essential for everything, ensuring good harvests, warding off disease, maintaining order in society.
So a collective effort to kind of appease the cosmic forces.
Exactly.
That's fascinating to think about.
It is.
You know how these ancient rituals reflected their whole worldview, their hopes, their fears?
It's all there.
But did they only express their beliefs through these ceremonies?
Well, no, I mean, myths were incredibly important.
Right.
These weren't just entertaining stories.
Right.
They were a way to transmit cultural values, explain the world around them, explore like the complexities of human nature.
So what would be a good example of one of these Akkadian myths?
Well, one of the most famous stories with roots in this period is the Epic of Gilgamesh.
Oh, yeah, Gilgamesh. I've heard of that.
Yeah.
It's the one with the king who's searching for immortality.
Right? That's the one. It's a powerful tale about friendship loss and coming to terms with our own mortality. And Gilgamesh, even though he's a king, he's still relatable
Okay.
because he experiences the same grief and anxieties that we all face.
Right.
It's a reminder that some human emotions are timeless.
It's incredible to think that a story written thousands of years ago
I know.
can still resonate with us today.
It's amazing.
Mm.
It speaks to the enduring power of storytelling
Yeah.
and the universality of these human experiences.
So the Epic of Gilgamesh was like their version of a, popular book or a movie.
Yeah, exactly. A shared cultural touchstone.
It gave them a framework for understanding life and death and everything in between.
Right.
It's interesting to think about how the Akkadians took these Sumerian stories
Yeah.
and really made them their own,
Mhm.
added their own interpretations, their own insights.
They weren't just passively accepting them.
Right, it was an active engagement.
Absolutely. They were building on what came before, adding their own layers of meaning and complexity.
Okay, so we've got these grand temples, elaborate rituals, powerful myths shaping their worldview.
Right.
But the Akkadians were also known for their innovations,
Yes.
particularly in writing and art.
That's right.
So let's explore that legacy and how they left their mark on history. We've explored their bustling cities, their complex beliefs, those powerful myths.
Yeah, it's been quite a journey.
It really has. But
Right.
I'm curious about their lasting impact. What did the Akkadians contribute to the broader world?
Well, when we talk about the Akkadian legacy, we have to start with cuneiform.
Oh, yeah, that writing system.
Exactly. They took this Sumerian invention,
Mm-hmm.
these wedge-shaped symbols pressed into clay tablets, and they really made it their own.
I gotta admit, looking at cuneiform, it's hard to imagine it being used for anything beyond, simple record keeping.
Oh, you'd be surprised. Cuneiform wasn't just for grocery lists or tax records.
Okay.
It was used to record epic poems like Gilgamesh complex legal documents,
Wow.
even letters between kings and their advisors.
So it was like their email, their library, their legal system.
Yeah, all rolled into one.
And I imagine you control the writing, you control a lot of information.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Imagine a world where your ability to read and write determines your social standing, your access to knowledge, even your legal rights. That's
Yeah.
the power cuneiform held.
It really makes you appreciate the power of literacy, even in ancient times.
For sure.
And speaking of power, we've talked about how Akkadian art often depicted kings as these almost godlike figures.
Right. Larger than life, radiating authority.
Exactly. So you're an Akkadian subject and you walk past this massive stone carving of your king. It must have been pretty awe-inspiring.
Oh, absolutely. It sends a very clear message about who's in charge.
It's a reminder that art has always been a powerful tool for shaping perceptions, conveying messages, and solidifying those power structures.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Wow. We've only spent a short time on this deep dive. For the Akkadian Empire, it's clearly more than just military conquests.
So much more.
They left behind this rich legacy of art, literature, innovation that still resonates with us today.
Absolutely. What I find really interesting, though, is that despite their military power,
Mm-hmm.
they really seem to place a strong emphasis on this cultural assimilation, blending their own traditions with those they conquered.
That's a good point. It wasn't just brute force.
Right.
It was also about cultural influence and adaptation.
Exactly. And, as we've been discussing,
Mm.
they seem to elevate the goddess Ishtar
Yeah.
to an even more prominent position than the Sumerians did.
That really stuck with me throughout this whole deep dive.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder about how their society viewed women and power.
It's a fascinating question.
Were women in the Akkadian Empire more than just wives and mothers?
It's a question that's still being debated by scholars. But the prominence of this powerful female deity like Ishtar definitely suggests a more complex social structure than we might initially assume.
So for all of you listening out there, the next time you encounter the Akkadian Empire, remember those bustling marketplaces?
The intricate cuneiform tablets.
The powerful imagery of their art. There's a vibrant civilization waiting to be discovered.
Yeah.
And maybe, just maybe as you delve deeper, you'll uncover some answers to those lingering questions about Ishtar.
And what her prominence might reveal about the nuances of Akkadian society.
Exactly. So until next time, happy exploring.
Happy exploring.